Welcome to Transcended. I'm Joe, and I'm the dad.
And I'm Raya, and I'm the daughter.
A couple of days ago, Mom and I drove by a house, and there was a sign on there. It said, psychic. We drove on by. I said, she knew I wasn't going to stop.
Yeah. My kids roll their eyes every time I retell that joke. Today we're going to be talking about 12 LGBTQ plus myths. Anytime you have a marginalized group of people, it's easy to form myths about them because you don't know what things are really like, and it's easy to mischaracterize and get all kinds of ideas in your mind about how things really are, only to discover it's not like that at all.
Myths have a way of taking on their own life. People start saying these things, and it perpetuates itself. It passes from person to person and thing to thing, and people will say it because they heard it from other people.
Right.
And that must be the way it is.
Right. Like bears hibernating through the winter. No, they don't.
Really?
No, they don't. Now, they do sleep more, but they do not hibernate through the winter. That is a myth that we were all told growing up. You were told that. I was told that. We all were told that bears sleep all winter long. No, they don't. They do tend to sleep more because it's cold out. But they get up and they need to eat and do things. Yeah, that's a myth.
Well, I guess it's just unbearable.
Let's get into these myths, shall we?
Okay.
All right, I'll do the odd ones because I'm a little odd. Number one, LGBTQ plus people choose their sexual orientation and gender identity. Now, you and I have talked about this one a lot here, that if you don't know anybody and you don't know the struggle that they've gone through, it's easy to think, oh, well, you're just choosing to go that way. But it's silly. Who would ever choose that? Who would ever think, I really just want to be ostracized by people and to be made fun of and to be bullied? That sounds like a good time to me.
And it's difficult for me to understand that because you are the only person in this podcast who actually has lived it and understands that you don't choose it. There is no option.
No, and even for somebody that thinks that it's wrong to be gay or lesbian, or for somebody that thinks it's wrong to be transgender, even if you're a skeptic, you still know that you don't choose it. Because if you could, then would you be tempted by the same thing? Can you get yourself to be tempted by something that you think is wrong but have no desire to do? For instance, I have no temptation to go and beat some stranger on the sidewalk. I have no temptation to do that at all.
Well, I'd like to do it if they had a backgammon game set up. I'd like to see if I could beat them on that.
But the point is, if there's something you don't want to do, you don't want to do it. And so somebody that is constantly even if it was completely wrong to be gay or to be lesbian, it still is the case that nobody chooses it. Because if you wouldn't choose to be tempted by something that you don't want.
Exactly. And people who are one way or another, whatever it happens to be, who are either transgender or are lesbian or gay or one of the other letters, those people could not choose to be something else. We can look at it from the opposite perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. Well, I think I would like to be heterosexual. Yeah. That's as difficult for them as it is for me choosing the other way. It's exactly the same thing that would go through in their head that would go through in my head if I was forced to be something that I'm not.
You know, it actually goes the other way. too, as well, that if you could choose it, it wouldn't still, by that same token, it wouldn't make it wrong. You know, we had on our New Year's podcast, we had Roy and Matthew on, and you see their relationship and you think, boy, if you could choose to have a relationship like that, that is as strong and as healthy, wouldn't you want that? Even if you could choose your orientation and you can choose a healthy relationship as a part of it, that still wouldn't make it wrong. But you can't choose.
Let's take a look at number 2.
Okay.
Number 2, being LGBTQ is a mental illness. That is clearly a myth, and it has been proven. Historically, being gay or transgender was considered a mental disorder, going back. However, modern psychology and psychiatry no longer consider being LGBTQ as pathological. It is a normal variation of human sexuality and gender identity. That's the point. It's recognized by so many people as being a normal part of life.
The American Psychiatric Association removed the diagnosis of homosexuality from the second edition of their DSM. That's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. That was back in 1973. Basically, they realized we can't correlate this with anything else. When you look at somebody that is openly gay, there's no correlation with anything. There's nothing about being gay that makes your life harder in the same way that mental illnesses or sicknesses do. And they realize we're only putting it in there because we're judgmental jerks. And maybe we shouldn't be putting that in there anymore. So they realized we can take it out because there's no problem with being gay.
Right. We did have a guest on quite a while back. I think it might be as far back as a year or more. Dr. Pete Gasper, who is a very well-known veterinarian, and he is he was on explaining the animal world, and that if it's identified in the animal world, and he identified 187 species where it is common practice, it's normal.
Number 3 myth that people have about LGBTQ individuals is that we are more likely to be pedophiles. This is one that's used oftentimes in anti-LGBTQ media to just smear us and try to make it seem like we are bad people, that we shouldn't be around, we shouldn't be allowed to be teachers, we shouldn't be allowed to do anything related to kids. And it's completely false.
It's false, and it's harmful. Sexual orientation and attraction to minors are unrelated. Here's the other interesting thing. The vast majority of child sexual abuse is perpetrated by heterosexual individuals. Point number 4. Same-sex parents harm children. Well, we know that there have been so many studies out there, and those studies have consistently proven that they're as about exactly the same as heterosexual couples. They are as diverse and unique in their identities, background, and experiences, and they are beautiful people, and it's all up to the family. If the children have a loving, caring family.
You'll sometimes hear people talk about that children deserve a mother and a father. Well, sure. I think in a perfect world, we would love to have children have both of their biological parents. However, we know that that can't always be the case. Adoption has been around forever. And what happens if you have people that don't fill their stereotypical roles. So what if you have a husband that is not perfectly masculine in all of the stereotypical sense? Are the kids somehow lacking? What if you have the mother that's not stereotypically feminine in the 1950s housewife kind of way? Well, are they lacking now? And if they're not lacking when people break those stereotypes, why would they be lacking when they have two parents of the same gender? It just doesn't make any sense, and studies bear that out. Number 5, being LGBTQ plus is only a phase. You hear parents saying this oftentimes, that a child comes out, says, Mom, Dad, here's who I am. And this might be a part of the parent's denial as they're struggling to come to terms with it or pretend that it's not a real thing. Oh, you'll grow out of it. It's just a phase. Now, sexuality can be fluid. And there are times where somebody may say, I don't quite know. So, for instance, I've oftentimes seen somebody who is gay or lesbian will say, I think I'm bisexual. And then a year or two later, they say, I was wrong. I'm not bisexual after all. I'm gay or lesbian.
Oh, that's interesting.
And why that will happen is because heteronormativity, the need to fit in and be like everybody else, is so strong that it's easy to go through life and assume I must be heterosexual just because everybody around me is. So that must be me. And then you start to, it's sort of like, the door opens up and there's a little crack, and then you start to think, maybe I'm not.
I'm not sure I agree with that. There are certainly people out there that are attracted to both men and women.
Absolutely there are. And in fact, there's a tremendous amount of people that have gone through the experience that I'm describing that will then turn back and say to other bisexual people, you're probably not really bisexual. You'll find out that eventually you're just like me. I said I was bisexual too, and then I realized I'm just gay. But no, we're all different. And there are many people that it's not a signpost along the way. This is where they are, that they are bisexual, and that's all that they are. The point is, just because we take our first stab at who we think our identity is, doesn't mean we got it right that first time. That might only be a stepping stone along the way towards our final identity. But that does not mean that anytime somebody comes out as LGBTQ plus, that's probably just a phase and you'll outgrow it. Probably not.
Number 6, being LGBTQ can be changed. There are some people who believe that having chosen to be gay or lesbian or bisexual or being trans is temporary, and that people can be cured through therapy or religious interventions. There are a lot of religious interventions out there. However, sexual orientation and gender identity are not typically reversible. Attempts to change them, which is often called conversion therapy, are widely discredited, and they can be extremely hurtful and harmful, both.
There's a documentary on Netflix that you can watch called Pray Away.
Yes.
A whole documentary about this movement called conversion therapy, and we'll be talking more about that in these coming weeks. It was extremely harmful. And when you watch this, you see the damage that was done in people's lives that were told, you can be changed. You don't have to be gay. You can be changed so that you have opposite sex attraction. Only to discover that their true orientation never went away. And there was a lot of people just hiding, pretending, claiming that it went away, and it didn't. Number 7 is that LGBTQ people are promiscuous. If you're gay, you're probably sleeping around with a lot of different people. Oh, and then this is a big one, the misconceptions about bisexual people. Oh, you're bisexual. There's no way that you could be faithful. Oh, you're bisexual. You're going to be cheating. Your one partner is never going to be enough for you, are they? Well, that's silly. In the same way that a heterosexual person may want, you might find somebody else attractive, but that doesn't mean that you're going to go out and cheat on your partner or be promiscuous.
Just like heterosexual people, the level of sexual activity varies widely among LGBTQ people. Reducing people to stereotypes only serves to perpetuate discrimination. And that's true.
When I think of the people that I know best, I can hardly think of any of them that are in the LGBTQ plus community that are promiscuous. When I think of the people that I know that are the most promiscuous, they're all straight. Now, that is anecdotal evidence. The point is, you can't just assume that because somebody's gay, that they must be promiscuous. That's just not true.
Number 8, LGBTQ plus individuals are not religious. Yeah, I know. A lot of religious institutions have been unwelcoming to LGBTQ people. They say they are, but they're telling you, they're beating them down, telling them a variety of things. And many individuals are deeply spiritual, and they're really hurt by this. But the good news is a lot of churches have been changing their tune dramatically, allowing total acceptance, including anything that they get the same rights as everyone else because they are the same as everyone else. You can get married in their churches. You can teach Sunday school and all of those things that they were restricted from. That's not the case. And that group is moving dramatically, more and more all the time. This is a real coming out of the churches and of the religious community. I'm so pleased to see that this is happening. Locally here, we are starting a PFLAG group. And where are we meeting? We're meeting in the church because they're the ones that ask for it.
Sometimes you will get people that say, well, you're only transgender because you walked away from God. Or you're only gay or lesbian because you walked away from God. You can really only hold that viewpoint if you close your eyes to the facts. If you're so committed to your own narrative and your own view of the world that all LGBTQ people are wrong with God and have walked away from God, that you close your eyes to all of the people that are continuing to serve God and are continuing to be part of religious communities, you really have to shut your eyes to a lot of the facts. And it's just not true. It just does not comport with reality. Number 9, transgender people are just confused. And you hear this one a lot, again, from anti-trans people that will say, trans people just don't understand that they're not the same. You're not, trans women are not real women. Well, nobody is saying that transgender women are exactly the same as cisgender women. Believe me, if there's anybody that's aware of that, it's us. And nobody is saying that transgender men are exactly the same as cisgender men. Of course, that word cisgender just means somebody that's not transgender. Nobody is more aware of the differences than us ourselves. Nobody got confused. We know exactly what's going on. But we got to the point where we said, I'm sick of living this way. I don't like living how I was.
Right, exactly. Transitioning is a process of aligning physical appearance with your gender identity, not confusion. You're not confused. And doing that is the same as saying, I really was, well, you know, when I went to college, I thought I was going to major in math. You know what? I'm really not cut out for this. I don't want to spend the rest of my life doing this. This is not for me. Instead, you became a nurse. Number 10, LGBTQ plus rights threaten traditional family values. Well, this one has been debunked so many times. They have looked at the children who are raised by gay couples, lesbian couples, somebody transgender, and this belief suggests that recognizing and protecting the rights of the LGBTQ individuals somehow undermines the institution of marriage and the family. In reality, supporting those rights is about equality and inclusion, and it strengthens the fabric of society by promoting respect and acceptance. Makes sense to me.
Of course. By making sure that LGBTQ people cannot be fired because of who we are.
Yes.
You know, this particularly happens with transgender people. That, especially if somebody transitions and the boss says, oh, you're one of those weird people now. Oh, I don't like you here. You know what? You're fired. That's wrong. And there ought to be protections that when you figure out who you are, that you can keep your job. Or that when you figure out who you are, that you don't get kicked out of your apartment, that the landlord can't say, forget it, I don't want you here because I don't want a man in a dress. I don't want a woman that thinks she's a man here. You cannot get kicked out of your apartment. You should not be able to, and we should all agree on that. That should not be up for debate. Even if you think that it's wrong to be gay or lesbian, it should never be up for debate that we could ever lose our housing, that we could ever lose our job, that we wouldn't have the normal protections that you have in society.
Exactly. That's what it's all about. Hey, are we on number 11?
Number 11. All LGBTQ plus people are the same. We've said on this podcast many times.
Yes, absolutely.
If you know one transgender person, you know one transgender person. If you know one gay person, you know one gay person. We will have some things in common, but we will have a lot of things that are different. And in fact, the kinds of things that you have in common aren't even in common among all. So I might get together with another transgender person and we find that we have few experiences in common, and a third transgender person comes up and they don't have any of those same experiences in common. You might have two gay or lesbian people that they get together with a third. They have all kinds of things in common, but the things that they have in common do not match up with another gay or lesbian person because we're all different. Imagine if I thought to myself, oh, well, you know how all heterosexual people are. They all tell those dumb dad jokes. Why? Well, because you do.
Yeah, I guess so. Number 12, myth. And I have heard this from more people than I would have expected to hear it from. I've told people about our podcast and about its LGBTQ plus, and they say, I don't know anybody like that. That is a myth. I will tell you they do. I know for a fact. I've got here an interesting poll, the Gallup poll from 2021 says approximately 7.1% of the U.S. adults identified as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or what are the other pluses that you put in there? However, the survey relies on self-identification. So that means that those who are uncomfortable or willing to openly identify as such, they're the 7.1%. But those who are uncomfortable and choose not to come out, there's a percentage there too. And that percentage is, they say, anywhere from 25 to 30% of the people have chosen not to come out yet. So put that together, we've got about 10% of the people, adults in the United States, who are, they may not identify, but totally about 10% of the people in the United States are LGBTQ plus. You know what that equals? That equals about the number of left-handed people in the United States. So, do you know anybody who's left-handed? Can you find someone who says, I don't know anybody like that? I don't think you can.
And for somebody that assumes that everybody is right-handed, you're going to end up offending a lot of people around you.
Yes.
And in the same way, if you're assuming that everybody is straight, cisgender, heterosexual, and you make fun of those people out there, I guarantee there are some people that are hearing your words and that are extremely hurt by what you've said.
Now, let me add to this. Not only are we talking about 10% of the people out there, but we are talking to all the people who connect with them. Does that mean of the people that you talk to, of the people do you know, do you think take the 10% and add to them their relatives, their relations, their friends? That how many people are connected to somebody who is LGBTQ? I would venture to say that is probably in the 90 percentile. So when you're out there talking to somebody, you don't realize, oh, maybe you're putting these people down and you're talking to the mother. Mm-hmm. Or maybe you're putting these people down and you're talking to the wife. It goes on and on. Mm-hmm. They are out there, and there are lots of them, including Raya and me.
Mm-hmm. When you are in the LGBTQ plus community and you hear somebody say that, you just feel incredibly let down. But you know something that will never let you down? Listening to this podcast.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what else would help us. If you decide you'd like to be one of our supporters, you can donate as little as $3 a month. It's very easy to do.
What is that? That's a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Yeah. Just a way to say, we get value from this podcast.
And help us spread the word.
Thank you for coming back every single Monday. We're so grateful to have you.
And we'll see you Monday. It's not a medium. I'm trying to think of the right word. What do you call those people that?
Psychic?
Yeah, psychic. Okay.
You knew I was going to say that.
Yeah.